Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. It's becoming clear that a long trail of official negligence led to the Valentine's Day school shooting in Parkland, Florida. School officials failed, so did the FBI, but Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel has a distinguished record of exceptional ineptitude and arrogance. Under Israel's leadership, Broward deputies ignored repeated warnings about Nikolas Cruz's violent behavior. The department received at least 23 calls about Cruz or his family. In one call last November, a tipster specifically warned that Nikolas Cruz was, quote, a school shooter in the making, which of course turned out to be sadly true. Sheriff Israel did nothing. Under Israel's leadership, the department entered an agreement to drastically reduce student arrests. The goal was to eliminate the so-called school-to-prison pipeline, which at the time was a top priority of President Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder. The effect was a disaster. Cruz might have been arrested and convicted of a crime. Were it not for that policy, he would never have been able to buy a gun. Once the Parkland shooting began, Israel's deputies refused their most basic duties. Deputy Scott Peterson, whose only job was to protect students at the school, hid while Cruz murdered 17 people. When 3 more Broward deputies arrived, they too took shelter behind their cars rather than try and enter the school and save the lives of children. Scott Israel is the man in charge of all of this, and of course he's responsible for it. He loudly disagrees. Indeed, Israel relentlessly brags about himself to all media who will record it. 2 years ago, for example, the local newspaper in Florida reported that Israel used tax dollars to build a personal political machine, and he clearly had. The evidence was there, stone cold. Confronted with it, Israel said this, quote, "What have I done differently than Don Shula or Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King or Gandhi?" End quote. And by the way, he said, lions don't care about the opinions of sheep. Stable people don't talk like this, obviously. Something is wrong with Sheriff Israel. As recently as yesterday, he was refusing to accept any responsibility in the face of his well-documented failures. Watch this exchange.
Do you think that if the Broward Sheriff's Office had done things differently, this shooting might not have happened?
Listen, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, O.J. Simpson would still be in the record books.
I don't know what that means. There's 17 dead people, and there's a whole long list of things your department could have done differently.
Remarkably, it got weirder and worse from there. Watch.
Are you really not taking any responsibility for the multiple red flags that were brought to the attention of the Broward Sheriff's Office about this shooter before the incident, whether it was people near him, close to him, calling the police on him?
Jake, I could only take responsibility for what I knew about. I exercised my due diligence. I've given amazing leadership to this agency.
Amazing leadership?
Yes, Jake.
Amazing leadership. And yet the facts suggest that Scott Israel should not be in charge of anything. And yet he is. Why?